Fishful Thinker Television, brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Coldwell Banker, every day until it's sold.
St. Croix Rod, the best rods on earth.
Evinrude, spend more time on the water.
Good morning, welcome to Fishful Thinker. I'm Chad LaChance, the show's host, and we're glad you're joining us this morning. We really appreciate you having us. Today's going to be a really fun show, and I'll tell you why. This is part 2 of our 3-part series, Evolution of a Bass Angler. Hopefully you've been watching the show, and if you have, you've seen that in part 1 we talked about the introduction to bass fishing. We talked about straight pond fishing, walking around with just a single spinning rod, some basic tackle, and learning how to bass fish. Now, as part of the evolution of bass angler, we've stepped up to a small boat today, and the small boat gets you out off the bank, gives you a chance to throw back to the fish instead of walking down the bank. It gives you a chance to haul all your fancy tackle in the boat with you instead of having to carry it, which is a really, really great thing. It's going to be a fun show today, so thanks for hanging in there and see if we can catch some bass right here in an urban environment in downtown Fort Collins, Colorado. Now, one of the first advantages you're going to find of fishing out of a small boat, whether it be a kayak, whether it be potentially even a float tube, anything that gets you out off the bank as opposed to being on the bank to fish, is you've got a lot more mobility. You've also, more importantly, got the opportunity to throw back to the fish and fish bass particularly, and lots of species that you're going to find in pond fishing. And since we're talking bass today, we'll stick with that. But bass are very much target oriented. They have a tendency to sit on a piece of cover, just like we talked about in the first show. They'll sit tight to banks or tight to drop-offs or tight to various kinds of cover, and you're going to see today as we work around this small pond that we're going to do a lot of that. We're still fishing that same medium power, extra fast action spinning rod. We've added a couple of more rods, including a bait caster to the situation. But we're getting slightly more complicated, but certainly not so much as you see mine on TV with the big bass boat and all that. So just get rolling and see what we can find. Another thing you'll find is that by being out off the bank and being able to throw back to the bank, is you'll have a better angle at most of the cover that you're going to be fishing. And as we discussed in the evolution part 1, fishing cover is probably the most key aspect of being a bass fisherman. Bass fishermen really learn. A really good bass fisherman can pick a piece of cover apart or a style of cover apart in a hurry. We're going to use some Texas rig baits. We showed you those in Evolution 1, but I'll show those to you again here as they become effective during the day. We're going to use some small swim baits as well. We've got a few different things that we might use to get some bass to bite today. As part of your evolutionary process, you've got to move up to a boat. Well, if you're going to move up to a boat, it really doesn't technically have to be a boat. It could be a float tube. It could be a 12-foot boat like we're in right here. It could be a kayak. It could be a little flat-bottom john. There's a variety of things you could choose that are relatively inexpensive and very easy to get off the bank and start your process of evolution and evolving into a good bass fisherman. Well, we've chosen an 11.5-foot boat with a 30-pound thrust trolling motor under battery power. This is a hand-launched lake, and a hand-launched boat like this is an excellent opportunity to really hone your skills. It also forces you to make decisions, though you would on a big boat on a bigger lake, because it might take me 10 minutes to trolling motor all the way across this lake. So the decision process of how to efficiently use my time is the same whether it takes me 10 minutes in this boat or 10 minutes at 50 miles an hour in the big boat. One of the key aspects of becoming a really good bass fisherman is being able to really present your bait accurately, subtly, right where the bait needs to be. And that's one of the key things. Because bass are so cover oriented, you really need to be able to put the bait wherever you need. A skip cast can be a really key thing. This is that same medium extra fast spinning rod that we've been fishing with. This is the same Fireline tracer braid that we talked about in the first evolutionary step. The little fluorocarbon leader and Berkeley heavyweight sink worm right here. And this is a very heavily weighted worm, has no lead in it. It's just that the worm itself is very heavy. I'm going to turn, I'm going to make a skip. I'm going to skip the bait right up in here. If you watch when I cast, I'll do a short underhand roll and then I'll lift on the rod tip as the bait's sliding along the surface. We want to generate lots of lure speed. We'll slide the bait right in here. Something like this. close the bail, let the bait go down right on top of the cover. Now obviously I didn't need to skip my bait up right here. There was no overhanging cover, but if you practice around open water like this, then when you get to a dock somewhere, you get to a gorgeous willow bush hanging out over the lake, you'll know how to get your bait in there. So since it's so slick out here, we're trying to get a bait that we can get fish to react a little bit. And what I've got is a gulp jerk shad on here, 5-inch gulp jerk shad. It's totally unweighted. Working it on tracer braid on our same little trusty spinning rod that we started bass fishing with. And we're just kind of blind casting it down a bank, seeing if we can get fish to react. We've been bit on it, although only half-heartedly, but we'll see if we can get some fish to react to this. I'm working it relatively quick because we want those fish to react. See this little guy right here? Got one. That's a cluster right there. That's what happens when you're not paying attention. I dropped my rod tip to pick up another rod, and this guy just picked it up and swam off with it. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, that's your gulp working for you, because I was not even paying attention. And I looked down to grab another rod. This bait's sinking on its own. And that's step 2 in the evolution of a bass fisherman. You know, we're out in a little boat. We're on a perfectly private or perfectly public lake. We're right in the middle of town. There's trucks going by, and yet this bass is as good as any bass you're going to catch anywhere in the country. Little pop the hook out trick, but nice little fish, beautiful color on him, absolutely gorgeous fish. We'll kiss him. Wow, that's good luck. But the bottom line is that fish is probably impossible to get to from the bank. You might be able to wade. Let's go ahead and put him back. And love the colors on this one. That's a beautiful fish. How about that? Got it like that. Watch how clear in this water. Oh, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So, got a little bit lucky there. I'd love to tell you that was pure skill, but I did learn something from it. That was my gulp jerk bait here, or soft jerk bait, and it got a little tangled up, and I'll show you in a minute. But what I learned there is I killed the bait, it was just floating. I was reaching down to grab something else, boom, it gets bit. If I don't have gulp there, that fish probably spits that out before I ever even know he got bit. Got lucky, but we'll take it. Next step, and this is a big one, the next step in the evolutionary process of a bass angler is stepping up to casting tackle. Casting tackle has a lot of advantages over spinning tackle. First of all, because the line is reeled in straight on top of the spool, there's not nearly as much twist associated with it. There's no right angle bend in the line, so you've got lots of power in this reel. And it's a true one-handed operation. My bail and everything is all worked with one hand, the other hand does nothing but control the reel. Lots of ways to cast it. Can be cast underhand. Certainly it can be roll cast as well, which is going to be a really good way to cast. Can be cast overhand. There's lots of different ways that you can work a casting reel, but they all take practice. One of my favorites is a short little underhand roll. It goes something like this. No problem. Lots of distance, lots of accuracy on a short little roll. One of the things about casting tackle, I like to place 2 fingers in front of the trigger. It's got a trigger here, and I'd rather have 2 fingers in front of that trigger. What that does for me is it gives me leverage on the front of this rod. So we're gonna push the button, hold the spool with my thumb, 2-handed little roll, not a lot to it, always 2-handed. To pitch, you might have heard of bass fishermen pitching to catch their fish. I'm gonna leave about 2/3 to 3/4 the length of the rod out. I'm going to use my wrist, and I want to pendulum the bait. I don't want any slack, I just want to pendulum the bait. I don't have to get a big heavy whip on the rod as long as the weight of the bait is allowed to pendulum tight. Now as we work down a bank like this, I just pick out little individual pieces of cover. Now any little shade pocket, any little spot like that, and there's lots of cover along here, and some of it which you can't see. But just going along and being real thorough, and making lots of pitches and lots of short casts to various spots is eventually how you'll pick your fish up. Going off the right side of this tree right here. Now throwing right back into the heavy cover like that, that's what separates the men from the boys. That's where you find fish that everybody else misses, and that's really the key to catching them good. One of the things having the little boat does for you, and having any kind of a boat, I should say, does for you, and as part of your evolution, is it allows you to stay out and away from your fish. I can make long throws. These fish are very shallow, and this water is very clear, and the conditions are very calm. You add all that together, that's skittish fish. The farther I stay away from them, the less chance they have of feeling pressure waves from my boat. Certainly, if I was walking down the bank, they'd be very difficult because they're right on the bank, but if I stay out here and make long throws, I have a better chance. The braided line lets me get hook sets from way out there. The fast action rod helps with the accuracy. It's a whole system. Here he goes. Got that one. All right. Just like that. Now we made that long throw, just like we were just talking about. We made the long throw. We stayed away from the cover. Now we didn't exactly get a giant, but he illustrates the point of what I was talking about, and that is, hey, he almost got me with a hook there. Be careful. It's the little ones that are dangerous. You know, he might just be a little bass. He might not be a giant, but a bass is a bass, and they all effectively do the same thing. Now he may not be any giant, but he ate a 5-inch bait for starters. To give you an idea, he is named for the size of his mouth, not the size of his brain. So we'll put him back and let him go back and do what he does. But we stayed way out off the cover, made a long throw to it, twitch, twitch, twitch the bait, let it stall down in the cover. Very subtle, super natural. It's the Gulp product, so it tastes good. That's the way you get it done. Here at Fishful Thinker, we use a very distinct system when choosing colors for all of our baits, regardless of the fishing that we're doing. And our colors are always chosen based on our prevailing light conditions and water clarity. If I'm in very clear water or very bright light conditions, I like a somewhat translucent bait like this little power tube right here in a pumpkin seed color. It's a very natural, relatively light colored bait and will actually allow some light to pass through it. Great choice in very, very clear water. If I have more average water clarity, then something along the lines of a brown or a green pumpkin, a little bit darker, a little bit of flake in it, just it shows up a little bit better. If I have a couple of feet of visibility to maybe 4 feet of visibility, a color like that in the mid-dark range is a good choice. If I've got really stained water or very low light conditions, then I want a bait with some serious contrast to it. So this bait's got some chartreuse in it, real bright color. When I get the off-colored water, this bait's gonna be easier for the fish to find. All the baits are rigged the same, they're all the same size, but the color will absolutely make a difference in how many bites you get on a given day. So choose your color to match your light conditions and your water conditions. One of the reasons that we carry multiple rods and why it's so advantageous to have a boat instead of walking on the bank is I can easily carry multiple rods and multiple rods rigged. That's advantageous for 2 reasons. One, it gives me a chance to, at a moment's notice and without taking any time, to effectively change baits. So I just set down my Gulp craw and pick up my jerk shad, and it depends on how shallow my cover is. I got real shallow cover, I like the jerk shad better. The other reason that having multiple rods is good is that I can have them tailored to what they're designed to do. So I can have a casting rod that's real accurate, maybe a little bit heavier for some heavier baits, and then I can have a spinning rod that's a little bit more finesse oriented. And therefore I can basically tailor my rod and reel to my bait presentation, which is really the ultimate in bass fishing. Tiger Woods has a whole bunch of golf clubs. He doesn't play around a golf with one club. Each club does something different. Well, Kevin Van Dam's no different than that. Kevin Van Dam's got 15 or 20 rods in the boat, and it's not because he needs 20 rods to catch fish, it's that one of those rods will be the one that he needs on any given day, or maybe 5 or 6 to constantly change his presentation to match his cover. Oh, buddy. Okay, now we got this one on that jerk shad. I just switched up to him and made a cast as the boat was drifting by there. And boy, I got a nice one now, and he ate this thing. Come here, fish. Oh, what a beautiful fish in the clear water. What a gorgeous fish. Come here. Oh, it's nice, that gulp jerk shad. Now, we were just talking about, I changed baits on a moment's notice. I put down the craw. There was a real shallow log right here. And I knew that the unweighted bait would probably be a better deal. And what a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous fish this one is. And he got that bait. And you know, the deal was this. I matched my bait to the cover. That was the deal. I had a real shallow piece of cover right there. I didn't want to drop anything with a sinker on it on him, so I matched the bait to the cover. And man, how do you beat that? That's a beautiful one. So again, we're catching fish on a variety of baits. Nice, beautiful color on that one. Absolutely gorgeous fish. See if we can get him put back real graceful here. How about them apples? Ooh, buddy. Match your presentation to your conditions. That's the whole deal. By being in the little boat, having several rods available to me at all times, change baits on a moment's notice, didn't take any time at all. The very next cast, boom. That means things are clicking. I've got a pattern working. I know how to catch them. I can probably work down this bank. I'll throw the soft jerk bait to the shallow cover. I'll throw the gulp craw to isolated pieces of cover, and I'll drag the lizard along the drop off. We'll continue to catch fish. And you'll see I keep straightening my bait out a lot. It's important that a soft jerk bait stay very, very straight all the time. Come on, baby. Skipped it up there nice, right around that big log. Golly, that's got largemouth written all over it. And got him. That's a nice one right there. That just felt like a good spot. You just sometimes know. Just everything in me told me that would get bit before I stay down, baby, stay down. There we go. That's funny, the tournament angler in me is the one that says stay down. As a weekend angler, you want them suckers to jump. You want to make them look beautiful. Now this is an absolutely gorgeous fish. And oh, look at this one. And how you can see that gulp bait in his face right there. Got him right in the top of the snoot. Just like, oh, hey, you know I'm doing that. Hey, 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 hey. Come here, buddy. Stop the boat. Now that's that same spinning rod. The first evolutionary step in bass fishing was buying this spinning rod and learning how to use it. I used all my skills right there. I skipped that bait all the way up underneath these bushes. You can see him behind me. You see that big laydown that he was on right there behind me. Skipped up underneath all the way to the dirt bank, twitched the bait once or twice. I barely got spit out in my mouth that it looked like a great spot for a bass. And we done stuck another hog. You can see that bait slides up the line there. That's that 5-inch gulp jerk shad. And that's a hog on a public pond. We're here on a weekday. There's nobody here. It's the middle of spring. Absolutely gorgeous fish. Now let me get him unhooked and get him put back right quick. The reason these fish do get a chance to get any size on them is because they are catch and release. And that is a beautiful bass. We are definitely evolving at a high rate of speed right there. See if we can get this one to jump. What a fish. Just beautiful colors on him. Now watch, sometimes if you let them go just right, they'll jump again. And I don't think that one's gonna. But that's okay, we didn't need that one to jump. We just needed to put that one back. Absolutely gorgeous. Again, presentation skills. The boat got us out off the bank. There's a sidewalk right there, but you'd never be able to get that fish from that sidewalk. The boat is the deal. Definitely a step up the evolutionary chain. As you evolve through the evolutionary step 2 into your small boat, a couple things to consider about your trolling motor. If you do put a trolling motor in your boat, as far as I'm concerned, low power and relatively constant on is more effective and less spooking to fish than is high power and on and off constant adjustments. So a constant even hum put out by your trolling motor is generally better. Here's a bite right here. Got him. Now, we switched up the baits right here, and oh, we got a real nice fish right here. We got a real nice fish right here. We got a real nice one. Stay down, baby. Stay down, baby. Now, got this one on the gulp crayfish, and he ate that thing on this isolated cover just like he knew what he was doing. And this, for a public pond right here in town, this is a nice one. And this is why, and I got a good hook on him, he should stay pinned. That's what I'm talking about. Right in town, I mean right in town. You can see we got a water treatment plant right behind us. This is a public pond, anyone can fish here. Got that medium heavy spinning rod and the straight braid, and that's a solid 5-pounder right there. And that's got a, I mean, that's a good fish. Now, you look at that, got the gulp crayfish on his little Texas rig. Again, it's a very fundamental, absolutely fundamental way to catch fish. That's a gorgeous largemouth. I mean, good Lord, man, what more could you want than that? So that would have been a very difficult fish to catch from the bank, but we're not on the bank because we're evolving. We've evolved into level 2 of bass fishing, and hey, if I can catch them like that at level 2, I can't wait to see what level 3 is. So I really want to thank you guys for hanging in there with us today as you're evolving. Hopefully you're going to watch all 3 parts of this show. Stay tuned next week for Fishful Thinker, where we step it up to the big boat. Gets more complicated, more technical, but more fun and more fish. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next week, and that's Fishful Thinker. Whew, gotta love it. Here you go, baby. There's one. They came off. There he is. Oh, there was a fish right there, and I bumped him off. I went to twitch the bait. Ah, throw it, Chad. In fact, I'm not even gonna let that one go.